I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Are you ready to win at the game of life? Well, throw out that rulebook and get down to the business of being the best and most authentic version of you. Welcome to the Human Design Podcast. We're changing the rules around success, abundance, purpose, love, and life, where we're creating a planet where everyone can thrive in a world that loves and supports each other. I'm your host, Emma Dunwoody, a qualified master coach, human design expert, podcaster, and entrepreneur that is living the life of my dreams, breaking all the rules while doing it, making a huge impact, and living my design and manifesting miracles on the daily. Join me as I break down and simplify everything you need to live in alignment with your human design, teach you how to recondition your unconscious mind for greatness, and to take back your power so you can manifest your heaven on earth and serve the rest of the planet at the same time. It's time to give up the fear and step into your highest potential, to reach for the stars, to know and live your greatness. It's what you deserve, and it's what the planet really needs from you. So buckle up and enjoy the ride.
This is your monthly reminder to go to the show notes and check out the Body Graph Chart software. I know you've heard us talk about this before, so I'll keep this very short and very sweet. But if you want to know the tool that we've used to bring in over 20,000 new leads and 5 figures in passive revenue into our business, then go check it out. It's amazing. Stop sending people away to other people's websites to get their human design chart. Instead, use this tool to put it on your own website. You won't regret it. And use the code Human Design Podcast, all lowercase all together, Human Design Podcast, to get 50% off for a year.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Well, today I am super excited to have my guest Holly Shipley here with me, talking about a topic that in business is on the tip of everybody's tongue at the moment. And honestly, I've been in this whole do I, don't I, will I, won't I relationship, and Holly was the person that has really helped me ground it in and allowed my line free to start experimenting. So, Holly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. And that means so much to me that I was helpful in you coming around a little bit on AI.
Well, it was so interesting. And so my whole AI journey, I've obviously keep my ears open. And it was actually, as so often, Elizabeth Ralph was talking about this person that was teaching AI or not teaching AI, just having a discussion group kind of thing about AI in her community. And it was the first time that I'm like, okay, I think it was because you're a woman at first, to be honest. I'm like, okay, well, if Elizabeth rates you and you're female, I'm like, okay, now I feel like I can get a little bit more curious about this whole conversation, because I feel like the AI conversation is so run by men. You know, it's really at this like, it's all about making money and focused on, you know, outcomes and how they can and what could possibly go wrong and all of these things. So I feel like that's what's kept me out of the conversation. And your take on AI has definitely been a lot more welcoming from my perspective. But before we get to that,
okay,
I want to let the listeners know we always want to share with our listeners everybody's design. So Holly is a 4/6 emotional generator, and she's the cross of explanation. And I just looked it up in Brynja's book to get the high effect. If you have her book, you'll know what I'm talking about. And the quote is, people pass through my life when they need to hear new ideas explained from their inner voice or from others. And Holly and I were just having a giggle because that's exactly what she's here to do. So exciting times. So let's start at the beginning. Okay. Specifically, we're going to begin with business. There is a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and business. In fact, let's not even start with business. Let's start with a bigger conversation. There's a lot of talk about AI and about basically AI taking over the world. I would love you just to start with your interpretation. What's just your opinion about where we are in this moment in history with AI?
Well, AI, I think of it as sort of a neutral entity. It's a tool. It's like money or power or electricity. It's kind of how you use it dictates the value of it, or the whether or not it's good or helpful. And so where we are right now in AI is kind of where we were with the internet, or with when apps first came out. If you have an iPhone, or if you remember when iPhone apps first came out, a lot of the apps that were coming out were dumb. They were just like stupid little silly. You tilt your phone, it looks like you're drinking a beer, or you like there's a little hi-hat noise. It's just stupid little displays of the functionality. And that's kind of where we are now with AI. It's in these little, like, oh, you can make an image, oh, you can make a video. And I don't want to discount the risk associated with like fake videos and misinformation and stuff like that. I want to be clear that I'm not dismissing that as a danger. But where we are right now is a lot of people talking about the whiz bang cool stuff that it can do. And I don't hear a ton, because that's where we were in the newness of it. So we want to like stretch the boundaries, want to try it out, want to show what we can do with it. AI is massive. It is. I talk a lot about what's called generative AI or conversational AI, and that's really generating something. So you type in something and it makes an image, or it responds with a text or something like that. And that functionality is what I talk about a lot. AI is a lot bigger than that, has a lot bigger implications. But ultimately, the way I think about it is like a tool. And so the better equipped we can be sooner of having a basic understanding of how it works and how you might use it now to sort of acclimate for how we might need it later or use it later as it expands and grows, is kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's one of the things that drew me to you is, and I was explaining this to someone yesterday, the way you talk about AI is a language. Just imagine that it's a language that we're at this point in time we're beginning to learn. So one of the things for me, it kind of took the pressure off. I'm like, right, so I don't even need to worry too much about the functionality. I need to focus on being able to speak the language, which I thought was such a powerful distinction.
Yes, that's what I think. I think everybody right now, I wouldn't worry too much about, unless you have a big giant company, or unless there's a couple of things that you kind of want to look out for with the shift in the way that like search engines are going to integrate generative AI and AI in general. But overall, it is just there's an opportunity now to understand how to talk to these machines and get what you want out of them. And if you're doing that, if you can kind of integrate that into your day to day as it shows up more places, you're not caught off guard by it. It's I always liken it. The example I use is it's kind of like when you see a search box on Google, if you see a search box on Nordstrom or Amazon or something like that, or if you see a search box in your email, you're not all of a sudden like, I don't know what to do with the search box. You know what to do with a search box. You understand I can ask it for something. I understand the information that this search box has access to, and I understand what information it's going to get back to me. You're not going to go to a retail site and shop for a car or something like, you could, whatever. So this is the idea here. What I'm trying to get people to do is just start to understand how to interact with it, so that if the icon for search is a little magnifying glass, there's going to be some kind of universal icon for generative AI that's going to start showing up in software that you use now. So the sooner you can kind of understand, like you're saying, the language, the mechanism, how to interact with these machines and get the information that you want back, the better off you'll be in the long run. So that's what I always tell people. Right now, there's a lot of opportunities to use it. It's very buggy. It's super early. It's frustrating to use. It's not always a time saver at this point. And so what I'm asking people to do is basically, anytime you would go to Google, go to one of these other tools like a Gemini or a Copilot, or even the paid version of ChatGPT is a better quality, one of those, and just see what the answer is. And just kind of beginning to see how you might use it and seeing the answers that you get, learning how to talk to it. That's one of the things we talked about with the potential impact to women, is the best practice in engaging with these chatbots is to be very direct and to be very clear, and to say when you don't get what you want and say what was wrong with it. And that's sometimes that kind of really direct language is not natural for women, especially in the business situation or business context, because it's not always encouraged to be direct and say what you want and those kinds of things. So I really like talking to these chatbots.
I was going to say, I'm going to be really good at talking to these chatbots because I'm so freaking direct. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like,
it's interesting.
I think it's really interesting, and I think we definitely have to have a discussion about the different genders. But I want to talk about something you just said that I think is fascinating. I will often say something to Siri, or I will say something to one of these, other devices or apps, and they are absolutely not giving me anything near what I want. And I'm like, all these people talking about AI taking over the world, I think we're pretty okay right now. Yeah? Is that like we are very much in the beginning, right?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of advances, but ChatGPT was just released to the market at the end of 2022, November. And so it's really just been a little over a year since it's been in the public consciousness. This technology has been developed for a long time from a bunch of different big companies, but it was released to the public and has now scaled and is obviously much more. There's a lot more awareness around it now than there was before. But really, it's only been publicly available for about a year and a half. So we are very much in the early stages. The difference between this and other technology in the past is this technology has a faster growth rate. It is something that it learns more quickly. It can adapt more quickly. You can utilize it faster. It's sort of a compression of time. So in the past, when a technological advance occurred, you kind of had to build around it. You had to learn it. You sometimes had to build the infrastructure and change things. This is really just kind of being bolted on to most things, which means it's really buggy, but also it means it's going to get attached and it's going to change things quickly. The way that you interact with information in the digital space, whether it's the internet, whether it's your email, whether it's the software that you already use, like an Adobe or something, or Slack or something like that, this AI stuff's going to get bolted on. If you haven't seen it already, you will in the next 6 to 12 months, probably. And pretty much every software that you use will have some kind of element, but it'll all be that verbal conversational interaction. So again, the practice of learning that's going to serve you in other situations.
So where's this going to show up in our everyday life? Like if it's going to get bolted onto the things that we're doing already, or our interaction with anything on the internet already, like where are we going to see it show up?
Well, a couple of examples that you see right now. Google made an announcement a couple of weeks ago at one of their big conferences that they're going to start to integrate and roll out what's called the search generative experience, which is on google.com. Your normal search results will now have a generative AI answer at the top, and they're rolling that out in the US now slowly, and they're going to roll out to the rest of the world in the next year or so. So that's going to change. That's going to interrupt, in some cases, your experience on search. If you're used to going to Google and searching for something, it may be a little bit more difficult to find, or it may be in a different place than it was before, because they're injecting that generative AI. Now, there's some kind of there's some kind of terms that you search that don't necessarily a generative AI answer doesn't make sense, so it won't show up. But you're going to see it in Google on google.com soon. The other place you're going to see it and probably use it in a day-to-day way would be in like your email. There's a functionality that's coming. It's in beta in a lot of places, but this basic functionality of going to your email, having kind of a little side panel that slides out, that's your AI interface, your little chat interface, and you're able to say, give me, when is the next PTA meeting for whatever elementary? And rather than finding that email,
that sounds amazing.
There's a demo that's so great that one of the, I can't remember if it was Microsoft or Google, but one of them did at a conference a couple of months ago, where they basically said, when is the next PTA meeting, or what information do I need to know from the past 3 emails from whatever elementary school? And it was like, there's a PTA meeting this day, Friday's crazy hat day, blah, blah, blah. And it just summarized like the last few things of what you needed to do. And then you were able to say, like, give me an idea for a crazy hat day for a 5th grader or something. Like, you could actually just continue to engage. So those are some examples of it's designed. It's supposed to, like every tool, make your life easier, right? If you think about it as a tool, it's a way to think about Google. If Google is a hammer, this is like a nail gun. It's a compression of time. It makes things easier, but sometimes a hammer is still useful. Sometimes you need a nail gun, sometimes you don't. So it's not like search is going to go away, or the way that we interact with information is going to go away, but there may be additional functionality because of this conversational interaction. You may be able to get more out of it, but it's gonna change the way that you interact with information. Basically, the way that you can think about it is you can ask questions about a set of information. So if you think about the search box on Google being basically a search box plus the internet, if you've got a search box on Amazon, it's basically search box against all the content on Amazon. So when you think about these AI models, you want to go, if there's an AI model attached to Amazon, which there will be in 5 seconds, you will be able to say, I saw a person a month ago wearing a green hat, and she said she got it. I mean, you'll just be able to like kind of describe what you want, and it'll find products for you. So the way that you interact with information is just going to change. And I think there's the concept of Internet of Things, where you have like your refrigerator can show pictures from your phone, which again, the utility of this technology is questionable in some cases, but this is going to be the kind of thing where you can talk to machines. And so and what that looks like in the future, obviously, I don't know. But the idea of having a conversation, not having to read a manual, not having to go through a YouTube video or something, but just being able to say, how do I fix this? It's making this noise and I don't know what to do about it. Those kinds of things. But in the short term, it'll be things like asking questions from on Google and just getting an answer right there. And then things like being able to ask your emails or questions to your emails and things like that. To documents, you'll be able to do it for documents. YouTube is rolling out a functionality where you can ask questions about the content in a video, so you don't have to actually watch the whole video. Or if you watched it, you can't remember something specific, you can ask a question about it because it's using the transcript of that video as its like data source. So there's lots of, I'm going to talk for an hour about the different use cases and examples, but that's kind of the idea is you're just going to be able to, where before you were searching and they were bringing back a set of links or a set of email or a set of products that then you had to dig through. The idea is this is going to do some of that digging for you and bring up a smaller consideration set for you or try to bring you some kind of an answer about
Wow. Oh my God. I can't tell you, like, there's so many. Instantly, I feel seen as a mother, as a mother that runs a big business, manages a house, also has a horse to look after, has to keep dogs alive as well as my children, like all of this stuff. I'm like, oh, that just sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
I just went through my emails the other day and I got to be honest, I may not have looked at them for a few days and it was so confronting. Like there's just so much. So that sounds really exciting.
It is. It's going to, I mean, I don't work for any of these companies. I don't have any skin in the game when it comes to whether or not people use these tools. I do, but I do feel really strongly that there's a huge opportunity for women specifically. This is something you and I've talked about before too, specifically for this. The way this kind of information works is these big companies invent this technology and then they go to other big companies to sell it who have those big price tags. And the entry point is usually through IT. And so big company building it, it's mostly men talking to IT, which is mostly men, in a big company that's mostly men. And so what we have is like, it's months, years sometimes before this trickles down to like the everyday people who might actually benefit from it. So I feel really strongly about getting in the hands of women specifically because this technology is, I believe, going to most immediately affect two categories of work, which are non-promotable work in the office and unpaid labor in the home. And those are primarily done by women. And so this is work where it's like administrative, it's tactical, it's research, it's planning, it's looking stuff up and figuring stuff out. And that is most of the time historically and traditionally done by women. And so when I saw this technology coming on the horizon, I was like, oh, we got to get this in front of women because this is where it's going to hit. If you think about, there's another example, there's a functionality where you can go in and say, help me plan a dinner party for 3 couples. Give me stuff that's in season. This is where I live. Give me a meal recommendation. It'll give you those recipes. Then you can say, provide a consolidated grocery list that's sorted by section of the grocery store that's proportioned for 6 guests. And it will just do that for you. And so it's little things like, it's kind of the example that I've used before. That folks have heard me in Elizabeth's community, they may have heard me give this example. But if you think about a library and you go into a library and you say, hey, librarian, I have a question about this. This is the information that I need. In the search world, like Google, if the library is Google, the librarian goes to the back. She gets a bunch of books. She brings those books to you and she hands them to you. And she says, the answer is in here somewhere. Good luck. Go knock yourself out. And then she just goes back and you don't ever see her again. That's Google search, right? Generative AI is you go to the library, you ask the librarian, I need help with XYZ. She says, hang on just a second. She goes to the back. She gets a bunch of books. Instead of handing those books to you, she sits down with those books, reads through all of them, figures out what the considered best answer is. It's basically frequency of mentions and validity of source. Is how they kind of judge that. And then she says, here's what I think the best answer is. Do you have any follow-up questions? So it's the same information, same problem that you're trying to solve, completely different solution mechanism, different way to interact with that information.
That is absolute. I love that metaphor, the library metaphor. I think it's really powerful. And yeah, I often feel the overwhelm of being handed all the books and being like, well, yeah, like how am I I don't have the time. I don't have so much space.
Time.
Yeah. I love it. So cool. So I want to talk about business. However, before we get there, let's talk a little bit about all of this, the fear. the fear mongering. Like one of the things that I'm curious about, and I could be just completely ignorant, so I'm just going to put that caveat out there. Like AI isn't, they talk a lot about it, becoming conscious. Like it's never going to have consciousness. Like it's always reflecting to the past. Like it's this, we think about it like the brain, like it's always just reflecting or reviewing, I should say, on information that it already has. Like, isn't consciousness and, becoming intelligent, that's actually not the knowledge, it's this connection to something bigger than us. And I know this is kind of a big open thing to put down here, but I'm trying to get my head around what all these people are saying about AI taking over the planet. But there's part of me that's just like, isn't that completely impossible? Or am I just being completely ignorant?
Well, it's a big question. It's complicated, obviously. I think there is, if AI ends the world, it was because people used it to end the world. Like AI itself, there's not going to be, I don't believe, and I may be wrong, but I don't believe there's going to be some robot army that takes over. My understanding of AI is that it is derivative, that it is essentially a mimic of logic, human knowledge, how it learns how to interact and to behave and to respond from being interacted with. So it's a learning, it's all the information is derivative. It can do different combinations. It's like the idea of writing a song. There's only a certain number of notes, but there's all these little bitty notes in between, and AI is better at finding the notes in between. So it might find a different note than a human might have found yet, because it can see, it sees the music, the notes differently. So it might come up with something that we hadn't come up with yet, but ultimately it's derivative of a static set of notes that it can pull from, a static set of information. It's like there's 26 letters in the alphabet. You can make a billion different words in a bunch of different languages. It's essentially still the core, it's still derivative. So I'm not qualified to judge what makes a thing a living thing, or a soul, gives something a soul or whatever. But my understanding is that I'm not worried about it taking over or anything like that. What I am worried about are the way that it's going to be used and the impact that it has on societal and human connection. Those are kind of
I think that's fascinating. The other thing, and I want to talk about that, the impact on, connection. The other thing that I was super curious about, this is something I was musing on, like surely if AI is going to be that intelligent and it's going to review like everything in the past, and it's going to gather all of our information about growth and evolution, then if it's going to evolve really quickly, this is something I was talking to T about, and again, it could just be complete nonsense, that, well, if AI is going to follow the human evolutionary scale, then overtake us at some point, like surely it's going to get to like higher consciousness and love and making decisions from that place a whole lot faster than we are. I was like, so maybe we just might have 10 minutes that really sucks if it's moving that quickly. And
that's really interesting.
That was the other thing I was thinking, like surely if it's going to overtake us and it's going to get to higher consciousness faster than us and make decisions from love faster than we are. Is that possible, or is that just me like making shit up in my head?
I don't know. I really don't. The one thing about these models is that they're bound by human rules. So in the sci-fi disaster movies, it's always that they say we have to kill humans because humans are killing the planet, or humans are killing themselves, and the right thing to do is to shut it all down and start over or whatever. So that there's some rules around it that are controlled by the behavior of it, what it can do, the parameters or whatever are set by humans. And so I'm curious to see how restrictive people choose to be, the people who are creating these models, how restrictive they choose to be, and then because that will dictate how much these models are able to evolve independently. There are certain restrictions that are going to be in place, and there are certain restrictions that aren't. And that's one of the things that people get nervous about, is if we don't put any restrictions on it, what does happen? What if it doesn't have, because it doesn't have that human element, the capacity to evolve in that category, in that capacity? What if it just gets more logical? What if it just gets more, we don't know. I don't know how it's going to work or evolve. I am curious, but there are it will be heavily influenced by the people that control the models themselves.
So who are those people that are controlling the models? Like, I suppose that's the other thing. Like, where's the seed? Where's the genesis of all of this? Where, because I heard an interview, and I can't remember who it was to reference it, but like it's already too late. Like it's already out, it's on the internet, it's already doing the things. So us even talking about creating the rules and this very specific models, like the horse is bolted. Like what's the truth about that? And what is this Genesis piece?
I think, well, I think in a lot of ways it is already out there because a lot of this stuff is code based. And once you have the code, you can scale it, reapply it, reconfigure it. It's, it's like a search box on a piece of content. This is an AI model on top of content. It's the AI model. If it doesn't have rules around it, can kind of do whatever it wants. But as far as who's pulling the strings on this, it's these big tech companies. There's not a ton of companies that are making these large language models. One, because they're complicated to build, and two, because they are incredibly, incredibly expensive to run. They are significantly more expensive from a processing and storage cost than search or any other kind of digital disciplines that have existed. This is multiple folds more expensive. So there's limited in who can actually develop this technology. So it really is concentrated in those big tech firms like Google and Microsoft, OpenAI.
So isn't that a massive concern in the first place?
Yes.
Like that this is actually coming from, corporate as opposed to, I mean, not that the government's any better, but at least
Right.
they're meant to be creating rules and regulations that are meant to keep us safe. Again, they don't, but even that, surely that's an issue.
Yep. And there's a ton of conversation in the US, especially in politics around how to regulate. And I would say on the one hand, it is a little bit out of the cat's a little bit out of the bag. I mean, OpenAI broke the technology to the world. It's been in development for decades. They broke it to the world. And one of the reasons why it's been held back by companies like Google is because the release of this risks their ad revenue. Because if you go to Google and you don't have to click on an ad to go to a website because the answer that you're looking for shows up on the search results, then there's no payable click there. So they've held that technology back for years to prevent basically cannibalizing their own business. But OpenAI broke it, so now it's in the world, it's happening. And on the one hand, I think we are a little too late kind of thing at this point. But on the other hand, if we don't have any kind of regulation, any kind of oversight, any kind of guardrails, then that is not a good scenario either. So we are a little bit at this moment, in my opinion, based on, I have limited knowledge of what goes on the inside of those big companies. We are a little bit at the mercy of the moral compass of a lot of these leaders.
That's a concern, especially because I feel like there's so many of the leaders in these big companies that actually have morals have left. They have not stuck around. So
yeah, that's happened to OpenAI recently. There's been a lot of leaders at the executive level leaving because of concerns.
Yeah. What in your opinion, and I fully appreciate this is just your opinion, like what are the things that we can do to I don't love the word protect, but I'm going to use it in this context. Is there anything that we can do to kind of protect ourselves from AI? Like one of the things I know we're talking about you helping us use AI within my business, and one of the things I said just straight off the bat, because this is the way I feel, is I don't want to creating videos or anything from that perspective. Like, is there? I get that my image is out there anyway, and people can probably make videos whether I like it or not. But are there any things that we can do now to protect our own knowledge, information, identity, anything?
Yeah, there's one, you can just be careful about what you put into these Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, and these models. Be careful what you put in. Don't put any personally identifiable information. That's the first thing. The second thing is begin to understand how they work. Begin to interact with them now. Again, when you use it, you start to understand what it is. And the more you understand what it is and can do, you can utilize it. You can use it the way you want to. That understanding gives you some awareness that can help you navigate how you actually use it. We as individuals don't have a lot of power or influence over what the models end up doing or what those big AI tools become. But we can start to educate ourselves so we understand how to use them, how we can choose to use them, and then also just making sure you don't put any information in there that you wouldn't. That's real tactical. But the other thing, one of the things, I think you and I talked about this, but one of the things I would encourage everybody to do, if you have a business, if you are part of an organization of any kind, start to identify the things that you are going to, instead of saying like, these are all the ways we're going to use AI, I am actually encouraging everybody to start with, these are the ways we are not going to use AI. So you saying, I'm not going to have it make videos. I'm not going to have it do this. There's a lot of, I work with some advertising agencies, and, there's some creative aspects that we want to make sure stay human, but invoicing does not need to stay human. Any like that kind of stuff that's real tactical and administrative and stuff, put that on the list of maybe we can do it with AI. But I think real hard conversations about what you want to stay human is a powerful thing to do in a business setting specifically.
I think also, like, especially given the nature of my business and what I teach, like my whole ethos is about authenticity, and authenticity isn't created by AI. Authenticity is, me being me and my team being them. So I think that's an important point, like being able to use AI for all the smaller tasks, or for example, like we've had a few different social media people, and my social media person now, like I can think of using AI in this way of, well, she just wants to go and find all the information on, or she has a very specific question around, let's say I'm like, do a series on purpose by type. Then she can go through all of my content and then, pull out, or it will can go through all my content and pull out basically a post. So that sort of stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual, we went to an AI summit here, and the guy that was leading it basically showed us they created, it was the what is it, Chat GPT-4, whatever, the most recent one had created a video of him, and then they'd done a video of him, and then they had split tested both of those videos, and the AI one had done better. And he's like, well, so we'll just use that. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, no, like from an energetics perspective, that feels so not okay. That feels like, well, that's not actually the energy of you out there selling. But again, it's this being in the middle, like being at the beginning, I should say, not the middle, being in the beginning. It's like you don't know what you don't know. And and like your opinion and your view of it just changes so quickly.
100%. Yeah.
But so the next question I have is, are there things that we should be opting out of? I think that's one of the things for me, because if they're going to be bolted onto and showing up in all of these ways, like there's a bunch of stuff that I've opted out. Like one of the first things that comes to mind is we have a really big supermarket chain here, and I think everybody has their, like, whatever it's called, everyday rewards thingy. Like there's no way, I don't want you collecting my data. I don't want you knowing what I buy at the supermarket every time. And that's just a me thing. So are there things that we can be opting out of so that our information isn't going to be more susceptible?
Well, as an individual, just as a person, I think always upping your privacy settings is good. Don't allow them to track you is probably a good idea. I don't know how much effect that's going to have on the security around your content in these generative AI models, if it's already in there or anything like that. But there's not really a ton of danger about your information your personal information getting pulled out. I haven't seen a ton of stuff where people's personal information is getting pulled out. And so protecting yourself, are we trying to protect ourselves against our information getting out or something like that? That's not really a huge risk with these. You don't want to put your information in there, but that's not my disclaimer. That's the disclaimer from the people who are building these machines. So if they're telling you not to put your information in there, you really shouldn't probably be putting your information in there. And that's things like your phone number or your address or any kind of data or anything like that. But as far as privacy settings, I would say always keep those high. One thing that is going to have a major impact is if you are a person who owns a site or has content that lives online, and you are dependent on traffic from search engines to make your money for revenue share things around if you are a part of an ad network, or if you get a lot of your leads or a lot of your revenue from people finding you through search engines, your business model is going to be affected by this.
Wow.
Full stop.
Let's go on to business. Let's talk about it. So, yeah, that's huge. God, it's really interesting, actually. I'm so glad you just said that, because we had this great example where not the most recent launch, but the launch before last, we invested $40,000 And we did a lot of Facebook ads, a lot of, actually investing in advertising, as opposed to, we usually spend around $1,200 promoted on the podcast, use our list, our network. And we got the exact same conversions from $1,200 spent to 40,000. I'm like, well, that's a good thing, right? Because it's not necessarily the ads that are generating the ultimate conversions for us. So that's really cool. So let's talk about, how can we simply start to integrate AI into our business? Like, for what purpose would we want to integrate AI, and how do we go about that?
So there's kind of two ways to look at this. One is, you want to think about the way that you'd use it from a productivity perspective internally as your business, with your info, with your content. How do we use it kind of behind the scenes? Then there's a way to look at it. How do we use it potentially on your site for your customers, for your clients, for your students, that kind of thing. So that's kind of, how do you use it? And then the other side of that is, how do you respond to other people using it? So as this technology gets more broadly adopted, again, this year, Google is rolling out this generative experience within the search results for all of its users over the next year or so globally. So if you are somebody, again, who is dependent on that, that is going to change. You're going to have to figure out a response strategy for that change in the way that you get business. And so there's the way that you use it yourself as a part of your internal processes and as a part of potentially your experience, if you own content or something like that on your website or as a part of your program. And then there's this other side of, like, what do you do? How do you change your tactics? How do you change your processes? How do you respond to the impact of the use of these tools? If fewer people are coming to your site, how do they find you? How do you react? How do you reach them? How do you get messages to them? How do you get leads? And then the biggest, I think, the lead generation, there's some strategies where you can pivot and get people to you still. The challenge that I think where people are really going to feel it is if you're somebody who has a rev share program with an ad network. So if you have content and people come to your page and they see an ad that is not for yours, it's like a part of a network, and the ad, like Google gets a piece of that, and then also you do, those views might not be coming to your site anymore, or not as much. So if you are somebody who 60% of your revenue is rev share from an ad network, we'll need to reevaluate what the new revenue mix is.
Wow. So is that going to, it's really interesting because I've opted out. We've gone with a different kind of strategy with the podcast ads, because I didn't want to go down that road, because I don't want any random advertising on my podcast, because I'm really values driven. So is that going to affect podcasts that's how they get their revenue, like just through these ad networks?
I don't think it should. I think it'll mostly be search traffic, because the search engines are essentially getting taken over by generative AI.
Yeah. Crazy. All right, so let's talk about, a lot of my listeners have, there's a lot of solopreneurs, there's a lot of startups, there's a lot of people that, honestly, they're opting out of corporate, or they're moving out of corporate and into a small business. And I know, when I started building my business, I opened the doors of my first business in 2011. There's just so much stuff that you do, like in the first few years especially. So how can we use, in the beginning, like, how can we help ourselves start up our business with AI?
It's a great tool for things like that. So if you go to copilot.microsoft.com, if you go to gemini.google.com, or if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, those are the tools that I'm going to talk about right now. Those are kind of the three. There's a million different kinds of AI tools. Those are the three that are probably the most easily accessible and have access to all the information on the internet. So Google's AI model, it's called Gemini. It essentially uses Google's search index. So all the information that you could access on Google is essentially what this AI model has access to. So when you ask yourself a question like, how do I start a business? Or what is a small business? I am this kind of a business. I'm going to be an independent consultant, and I live in Texas, and I want to start a business. What do I need to know to do that? And if there are articles on the internet that you would find in links if you Googled that question, basically the AI model is going to cull that information and provide you with sort of its best guess based on the information that it has access to. So I have done this for myself as I've started this business. I need to start an LLC. So I say, what kind of a lawyer do I need to contact to get an LLC? Are there sites that will help me do it online? What are the risks of starting an LLC by yourself versus you would just ask it like an expert? And sometimes there's some best practices around prompt writing that you could ask a chatbot, what are the best practices for prompt writing, and it will tell you. But there's some basic things, and one of them is being really specific about what your expectations are. The other is sort of casting the AI model in a role. You're an expert financial advisor. You're an expert on starting a small business. You're an expert on, like, say what it's an expert, or you can say prioritize information from trusted sources. Prioritize information. Accuracy is very important. Make sure that you're pulling, and you can kind of give it some direction or narrow the scope of information. So it's not just pulling from the whole internet, it's pulling from trusted sources. It's pulling from expert sources. So you can kind of get higher level results by sort of narrowing its scope a bit. But if you're starting a business, if you have a moment of resistance, challenge, I don't know how to file my taxes, I don't know how to send an invoice, I don't know how to send an email to a customer who hasn't paid me, I don't know how to do, then you can literally just go to one of those Copilot, Gemini, the paid version of ChatGPT, and say, how do I? Or write an email to a customer who is 3 weeks overdue for a payment, but be nice because I like them. You know, and it'll just pop a little email together, and then you can edit it. So the one rule from a prompt perspective is be specific about what you're looking for, and be specific about the quality of the results that you're expecting. So, like, I want you to be an expert. I want you to pull from expert content. And the other is to just be really clear about what the expectations are of the content itself. I want you to give me a checklist. I want you to give me a format. I want you to write it for me. I want it to be a letter. I want it to be formal or professional or casual. Like, give it some guidance, and it will, the more specific you are in the prompt itself, the better the first result will be. Otherwise, you end up kind of having to go back and forth with it. And I have found, just anecdotally, the more you have to go back and forth, the lower the quality becomes. It gets confused. It can't remember. Again, it's new and it's buggy. But if you can be pretty clear in the initial prompt, you can usually get some pretty high quality results. I will say, as a giant disclaimer, validate everything that comes out of these machines, because again, it's still new. They make stuff up sometimes if they don't know. You can ask it, where'd you get that? Provide the source.
Oh my God, they make stuff up. Is that just like, well, if I put this with that, it should mean this?
Yeah, it's called, they say, I don't love giving human characteristics to these machines, but they call it hallucinations, where it thinks it knows the answer. I know. I was like, I don't love that terminology. Yeah. I don't even not trust in these machines. I don't want them hallucinating. That's crazy. Yeah. But they, so they basically just make stuff up if they don't know the answer. If there's not a consensus, consensus of opinion, or they can't verify. So I always say, if you're doing research, this is a great way to shorten the amount of time that you have to do the research. It gathers a bunch of stuff for you. Again, you don't want to take high stakes action just off of what these chatbots are giving you, but it certainly can give you first draft, not final draft. It can give you a set of narrowed information, so you don't have to, search through a million documents or whatever. It's a little bit of a shortcut. You can think of it like a research assistant, stuff like that.
Yeah, wow, I love that. I'm actually having a real aha moment, because it's the generated AI has been launched on Evernote, and I use Evernote a lot. And I've used it a couple of times, and I'm like, this is shit. And I'm just realizing it's not at all. It's because I'm not asking it the right question. So now I'm like, the minute I hit stop on this, I'm like, right, I'm on Evernote. I'm having fun. Because I'm like, wow. So I can ask it really specific questions, because I'll often look up, because in Evernote, I have all my content that I've ever written. And I love to always refer back to the gates and the channels and all the stuff. But I'm sitting here geeking out thinking, I could actually ask it, like, what specifically is the shadow of gate, blah, blah. And it's not going to take just, like, I will always refer back to almost like my final document, yet all of my notes are in there on gate 55. So it's going to bring everything, like, it's going to, give me a synopsis of everything that I've ever written about the shadow of gate 55. And that's cool. Like, all of a sudden I'm excited.
Yeah, good. It is really, I could sit here for an hour and tell you all the different ways all these people that I've talked to have said, this has changed my life. My mom is in her 70s, and she was the first person that I kind of taught how to use this. She's very curious and she's really smart, but she uses it all the time. She uses it all the time. She does product research on it. She looks up all her friends' illnesses on it. There's a baby dedication at their church, and there were 2 babies, and she only had a speech for 1 baby. So she put the speech in for the 1 baby and said, make this for 2. And it worked. And she edited a little bit, and then they used it. So she just, and that's what I mean by the practice. Once you kind of understand, like you're having that aha moment, once you kind of have used it and you understand like, oh, I can do this, you really start to understand how you can use it. And so again, that practice of the mechanism itself and just starting to just use it, just on low stakes stuff that doesn't matter, grocery lists, stuff like that. And so you'll really start to understand later.
I love that. And the thing that's just come up for me, right, when you said she looks up her friends' illnesses. So like a big siren went off in the back of my head because, like Google Doctor, let's think about, the pandemic. The information that Google put out there was not true. Like they put out, they banged on about them trying to control misinformation, yet they put out a lot of misinformation. So if these chatbots are looking at the wrong information, like how does that affect our results?
It's bad. It's really bad. We're going to get bad information. It's one of the reasons why I want people to be so careful with how they ask. And so if my mom's looking up somebody's like diverticulitis or whatever somebody's got, she will say, find information from one of these three. And she'll say like the Mayo Clinic or she'll tell it which sources to use, only pull information from these sources, only pull from trusted sources, only pull from, and then you can kind of, again, narrow that. So if you just go willy-nilly and say, tell me, it's risky.
So how do you define trusted sources then? Because who the US government think is a trusted source is not a trusted source that I would want. So when we say trusted sources, how does it know how to define that? And is that where we just go, okay, well, take information from this person, and this person?
Well, you can say, if you're not sure, if it's something that's pretty sensitive, like a medical condition or something like that, you can say, give me, you could say from medical schools or something, give me academic information about this that has been researched and has testing that's been done in multiple countries and multiple times over history, blah, blah, whatever. You can tell it kind of what you would consider a trusted, you could describe what a trusted source is. Brilliant. And just let it know that way. Or you could say, I trust this site, and this site, only pull information from those sites. You can also say, give me some perspectives on this current illness or this, what does Western medicine say about this? What is Eastern medicine? What is holistic medicine? What are the different categories of opinions on this disease or this sensitive topic or this, all these kinds of things. Again, if you just type in what is XYZ disease, that's usually pretty consistent because the definition of a disease is not, if it's, if it's something that's a little bit on the edge or whatever, but for the most time, there's some like scientific research that says this is what this disease is, this is what it does. And so if you're just asking about that, if you're asking about treatments, things like that, that's where you want to get into the really specific stuff. And I would not take medical advice from these machines.
No, no, absolutely not. Especially if Google owns one of them and Microsoft owns another one, because it's definitely, we've seen history has told us that they are not interested in empowering us to, be sovereign or to be able to take care of ourselves or heal ourselves. At least that's not their primary driver. So who's the third one that you said, and who owns it? Like, do I need to find this person? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a company called OpenAI that ChatGPT belongs to. Yeah. So it's independent. It's its own company. They have a massive investment from Microsoft, and they have investments from other companies as well, but they are independent. They're an independent company. They're not publicly traded at this point, so they're just their own thing. They actually, again, my understanding of their history is that they actually started out as a nonprofit to develop a technology that would sort of serve the people and be an access point. And then over time, they have they split off into a for-profit and a nonprofit. And since then, I think the lines have been blurred. But again, I'm not fully qualified to make that judgment. But they are their own independent thing, but they're heavily invested in by the other companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Anywho, let's bring it back to the things that we can influence. And so let's talk about, I want to just talk about the simple, again, I'm just thinking of my listeners, and I know for us, we started using really simple AI in our marketing on Instagram to minimize the time we spent like going back and forth with people so that we can get the information they want to them really fast. So
Yeah.
how could people listening, what's a simple way that they can use it in their marketing, or even learning how to use it in their marketing?
So there's a lot, depending on what you do. If you're somebody who writes captions and you don't really want to write, it's like social media posts with the caption. You have your picture that you know, kind of know what you want to say, but you don't really want to wordsmith it and craft it. These models are very good at reformatting content for different, basically ad formats.
Wow.
So if you have like a single tagline, you can say, make this appropriate, apply best practices from Facebook to this, rewrite this with best practices from TikTok, whatever you can, because again, that information, the best practices for Facebook exists on the internet somewhere. So these AI models are going to have access to those best practices because they live on the internet and they can pull them in. You just have to you just tell them to look for it. So from like a social media content development, if it's things like captions that don't necessarily have to come from the source, then you can do that. Any kind of marketing email, it's very helpful to ask about best practices and to ask for templates or formatting guidance. So if you want to send out a marketing email and your other marketing emails haven't worked, you could pop the last one in there and say, this was not effective. Can you improve this? Give me some tips on how to make this more engaging. I didn't get any click-throughs, whatever. You can ask it to optimize things. You can ask it to highlight deficiencies around best practices, things like that. So from a tactical perspective, you can treat it almost like an assistant or an editor, something like that. Somebody that would bring you a draft and then you would do the final draft kind of thing. So there's ways to do it. And then from a self-education perspective, if you are somebody who doesn't really know how to do marketing, like you're maybe somebody who's an entrepreneur yourself and your skill set is what your service that you sell, your product that you sell, and you're not a marketer, you can use these tools to say, just, you can put your website in there. For example, you can say it's holly.com or whatever, and this is my product and this is what I do. Give me a 4-week marketing plan to promote my next thing. And it will basically walk you through the different elements that you need for that. So again, it's anything that the internet knows, you can kind of learn. There's an example that gets thrown around a lot that you can say, teach me, I'm going to Mexico City next fall. Give me basically a learning path to being conversational in Spanish specific to Mexico City by, September 15th. And it will give, and you can say, I want videos and I want blah, 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 and whatever. And it'll just give you like however long that is, couple months plan on how to learn conversational Spanish before you go to Mexico City. It's stuff. If you want a yoga routine, but you have a bum knee, it's like, give me a 5-pose yoga flow that's for 20 minutes. That's good for people with knee injuries.
Wow.
Like
this is just brilliant. Like I can see so much potential. And, just to sort of put human design over the top of it, this is actually what we talk a lot about when we talk about the new paradigm. So the new paradigm we move into in 2027, and although Ra had a very negative forecast, we're in the negative forecast, people, if you've listened to it. But beyond, like into this new paradigm, it's all about us having the freedom. Meaning that we have time resources, we have money resources, we have, food and nutrient resources. And it sounds like AI has the potential to fulfill that, as long as we don't manage to blow ourselves up with it in the meantime. It does feel like it has a lot of potential to take care of all of those things. And again, from a human design perspective, all of those things that we've been forcing ourselves to do and burning ourselves out, instead of following the things that light us up, or the things we're obsessed about, or the things that, creatively move through us or feel really good to us. It's this time where this could be an incredible opportunity to support us to do the things that really feel great. Now, I suppose, and I'm really conscious of your time, but I want to ask, okay, if AI is going to be doing all of these things that we don't need to do, sounds like it's going to make my life a ton easier.
I think it can.
What jobs are people going to be doing? Like, how is it going to affect, the job market, if you like, going forward into the future? Like, there is part of me that's like, it's interesting that Google and Microsoft even want this, because, who are they going to sell products to because they're not stressed and all the other things anymore and need all the products? I don't know, but what's your opinion on that?
I think, and again, this is one of those things that who knows what's going to happen. But from my perspective, this is a huge opportunity. I specifically feel it for women because, I mean, even the examples that I've given you, you can see how that can compress time. That's saving time. And the stuff I've described is mostly work done in the U.S. anyway, historically and traditionally by women. But
yeah, here too.
Holistically, I think the impact is going to be, it's going to be a fundamental shift. There are going to be a ton of jobs created and I believe an expansion of the economy because of generative AI. If you think about a company like NVIDIA, they are the company that is the most prepared from a supply chain perspective and an infrastructure perspective to meet the demands, that the chip demands, the processing demands of AI. They're one of the only ones that make the chip, and then the only ones that have the scale of production to meet the demand. So that's why their stock has been blowing up. But that is an example where that company has, I'm going to quote this wrong, but I believe it tripled its revenue in Q1 versus Q4. I think I may have that wrong, but something like that extreme. And they're like billions and billions of dollars. So it's not like a double and you go to 200,000. It's like they doubled or tripled or whatever. And now they're at like 26 billion for a quarter and that's new. That's net new industry. This is not a replacement of, there's going to be a lot of changes. Obviously there's going to be stuff that is obsolete, but this is new. There's some, it's like the difference between a car and a horse and buggy. We don't need horse and buggy stuff anymore because we have cars, but cars, think about when electricity became widely adopted and integrated into people's homes, the massive market opportunity around electronics.
Yeah.
So it's like AI is going to really open up another part of the industry for a lot of people. And so I don't know what the work will be. My hope would be, but I don't have a lot of faith in corporate. I used to be in corporate, so I don't have a ton of faith in corporate. But I don't know anyone who couldn't use 30% more productivity, 30% more time, 30% more bandwidth. 30% is not necessarily a whole other person. For every three people, there may be a fourth job lost because it's about 25%. But there's going to be new stuff created in this new kind of a new economy. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like eventually. I think it's going to be major transitions. I think companies are going to think that they can get rid of people and replace them with AI. And I think they're going to overcorrect and realize that these AI models require input and oversight. If you don't know what you're asking for, and if you don't know if what they gave you is right or wrong, they're useless. So if you don't have any kind of human oversight for these machines, for quality control, and also to make sure that the information that's coming in, and you have to know what to ask for. You have to know you need a marketing plan. You have to know you need these things. And so it's going to obviously evolve and change. But I think I'm hopeful that companies don't just overcorrect and don't ever kind of swing back. We'll see. But I think there's going to be a major shift. But it's going to be like every other technological advance where more opportunities are created and some are lost.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing I just want to end on is I feel like, again, if we just trust the process, like be educated. I think that's one of the things for me with AI, like so much of me in the beginning is just like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be a part of it. Siri is not on in anything. There will never be a Google Home in my house, like all of that stuff. Having said all of that, I'm so super aware that I need to be across this. Like I need to be educated. I need to have some sort of opinion, even if it changes from 1 second to the next.
Yeah.
I need to be curious about it. And for me personally, I'm like, you know what? I was born into this life having faith in the human race, even when they do not prove that to me. But I really do believe in the human race. And I believe that, especially if we think about the new paradigm and the energies that we're going into, the potential this has to help us live more connected and fulfilled lives. Because it will free up that time. It'll free up that stress, because stress is the thing that's killing most people on the planet right now. So I feel like there is so much potential with the AI. And having said that, it brings me back to some of my most basic foundational is a better word, principles, is really being conscious of how powerful our focus is. So with AI, like anything else, are we focusing on the thing that is coming from love, not fear? Are we focusing on growth and evolution? Are we focusing on kindness and connection? Are we focusing on how this is going to make life better? Or are we spending more time focusing on the fear? Because that is not going to help. At the end of the day, we are creating our reality. So if we want this thing to be something that helps us really step up into this new paradigm, that we need to be educating ourselves and focusing on its positive potential, not and educating ourselves on what could go wrong, but being more focused on the positive potential that we have in front of us.
I agree. My dream would be that this technology gets us away from our computers. It actually reduces the amount of time it takes us to do some of this stuff, because everything that this is online. So anytime you're in front of your computer, we want to be not in front of our computers, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to be less. So my dream for this technology would be that it frees up time for us, and people who work in corporate now maybe have a little bit, or people who have day jobs, whatever, and maybe want a side hustle. This could free up enough time to where the side hustle doesn't take as much time, because you have kind of this robot assistant doing some of that work for you. And maybe at work you aren't as stressed. It's not as heavy of a burden, because there's help. There's a little bit of relief. I'm hoping that that's what these tools provide, is a little bit of relief, and it gets us actually spending less time in front of our computers.
I love it.
That's my goal.
Well, Holly, thank you so much. I'm super excited because we're going to be doing some work with you, and I'm freaking excited to test this marketing, the marketing stuff, because we have such great conversions already, but if we can improve the time it takes to get to that point, and improve everything, like, that would be really powerful. And you're going to be teaching a class in HDX, which is very exciting. I can't
Very
wait.
excited about that.
Exactly. And we might even have to have you next year to do a whole, I don't know if you're up for it, but we'll talk about it later, but a whole course on how people can integrate AI into their businesses inside HDX. So not here on the podcast, inside HDX. So thank you so much for your time. If someone wants to learn more about you or talk to you more, how do they find you? How do they reach out? I know it's super early days for you.
It is. And what's funny is I'm a very private person, so I don't have any social media or anything. Like, I don't have any content. I have nothing. But if you would like to get in touch with me, you can email me at holly@hollyshipleyconsulting.com. And
Perfect.
I'll read. Yeah, you can just email me. I've got
amazing.
That set up.
We'll put the details for that in the show notes, and you can always reach out to us if you want to find Holly. And if you want to see more of Holly with our crew, then come and join us in HDX and completely transform your life with the best collective of people on the planet that are not only just learning information, they're actually supporting each other to integrate it and transform their lives. Just a minor little plug for my beautiful crew over in HDX. Thank you so much, Holly. I really feel like every time I talk to you, I just feel more like, oh my God, this could be epically good. Like, this could be so good. It doesn't have to be fucking Terminator. Like, this actually could be something really, really epic. And I love that you focus on women. I know you're doing a talk in HDX about AI and women, because, you know, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast this morning, and they were talking about, Joe said something along the lines of, whenever there is a leading, like a hierarchy, when there's a leader in place in all human history, they basically dominate and minimize and control and end up harming the people that they rule or lead. And it made me reflect. I'm like, is that entirely true? And maybe it is. Maybe there has never been a time where there's been a leader that hasn't fully nurtured. Like, Nelson Mandela was the person that came to mind. Like, was that the case for Nelson Mandela? But the big thing that stood out for me was, we don't have enough evidence of women being in these positions, because if we had more female leaders in this position in history, would they have taken the same path? Would they have controlled, minimized, harmed, lied to the masses the same way that the men have in the past or the patriarchy have in the past. I don't know. Again, I don't want to like.
I would love to try it and find out.
Yeah. Well, we could ask, right? We could ask AI.
That's true. They can model it.
Yeah, we can find out. Like, if has there ever been a female leader that has empowered and lifted up all of her people? That is a good thing. And with the simple question, because I'm all functional. Okay, I've listened to the podcast. I'm like, yeah, okay, so I'm going to start using this AI thing. How do I actually start using it? Obviously, you said Google have made this announcement. Do I need to go out and get ChatGPT? How do I actually use it? Obviously, I'm going to go and use it on Evernote. But if I want to actively go and use it more, how do I do that now?
So I would recommend using, there's two tools specifically I would use just because they're kind of the generic ones. They're just sort of like the broadest functionality and they work pretty consistently. I have found the most luck with the consistency and quality of answers from Google's tool, which is called Gemini. So if you go to gemini.google.com, it looks sort of like a little chat interface and you can just ask questions, just interact with it. And the data set or the information that chatbot has access to is essentially Google's search index.
Amazing.
So the information, so it's gemini.google.com. And I would just use that anytime you might go to Google, just use that instead and see what you get. Anytime you're thinking about, I need to make a list, I need to plan, I need to do research, product research is very helpful on these. If you're like, is there a tool that fixes this? Is there a way to get this out? Is there just asking questions that are kind of maybe a little further back than you would put in a search box on Amazon or something like that, because you don't really know what you need yet. It can kind of help you figure that out. Compare, give me the critic. I really love, I keep saying product comparison, but that's a really easy one. If you're shopping around for like a new TV or I just bought a new car, shopping around for a new car, this is my need. These are my needs. I have 2 kids. I have whatever your particular thing is. This is the kind of car I think I need. What are some good options? This is my price range. And it'll just bring in a bunch of examples of cars for you to look at and tell you. And then you can say, based on expert reviews, give me the synopsis of a pro and con of this car based on expert reviews. And it will just give that to you. So instead of going to every single car site or whatever, and you can do that with pretty much any kind of product. There's a million ways to do it. So I would recommend, like I said, just any kind of Google search that we do, product comparison, trip planning, research on, you can say, here's 5 addresses, give me the fastest route for these to get to these 5 addresses, and it'll give you a little Google Maps. So wow. I like Google because it has one of the broadest sets of information that it has access to. So it's basically, if the internet knows about it, you can ask questions about it. And then I would say Microsoft is similar as well. It's called copilot.microsoft.com. And those both have free versions that you can just use and they work pretty effectively. You sometimes have to ask again, if it doesn't give you what you want, you need to tell it and then tell it what it did wrong, because it's learning and over time it'll get better at giving answers. But I like those because of the consistency. They're not always accurate, but they are more consistent than especially the free version of ChatGPT. But my main reason for recommending those two is because Google and Microsoft they don't anthropomorphize their models. They don't try to make them seem very human. And one of the things that ChatGPT has really leaned into is almost this AI companion space, where it really does, they want it to feel like you're talking to someone. And that for me is, I don't think that's a great way to go.
No.
And so Google and Microsoft, both the CEOs have come forward and said, we are actively not going to do that because we think that's getting into some potentially dangerous human connection issues.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. We already have a massive problem with mental health in the Western world right now. Like that's not going to help. But brilliant.
So I think those two, Copilot and Gemini, are the two I would use just to get started.
Yeah, so good. I need to get a new TV, so I'm going to go and look at that. And do you know what?
You
know what I'm going to have a go at? Finding TV series and movies, because I hate. Like, I'm so over all the world is blowing up, really dark series. Like, I want to laugh my ass off, and I, can oh my God, I can't think of her name all of a sudden. What's her name? Barbara. I'm getting it. Look at me. We're going to go see it. Celeste. Like literally, I just want Celeste Barber to create a dozen different series so I can just watch them back to back.
So that's a great use case, because you can go in and say, Celeste Barber is my favorite producer, director, writer, whatever. Give me, these are the shows of hers that I like. Give me other shows that are similar that you think I might like based on that.
Oh my God. I'm in. That's it. I've got to go tell T. I'm so excited.
And if it gives you shows that you know you don't like, say, I like this one. I know I don't like that one. So I don't like this show. So give me more recommendations based on the knowledge that I don't like this, but I do like this.
Oh my God. So I'm telling you right now, tonight we are going to do this. We're going to work this out and we're going to watch something epic, because finally I don't have to scroll through all the world is blowing up or stories about all these terrible things that humans are going through. Tell good stories. And I got to be honest, I'm going to out myself here. I love a good rom-com. So I love love. So love and funny. I'm going to go look it up and find it.
Perfect. Great use case.
Exactly, right? Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Holly. And as I said, I'm so looking forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I trust you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone, for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.